It's fair to say that navigating the streets of Boston by bike constitutes an act of faith. But according to my next guest, the spiritual component of cycling goes beyond mere cliche. It's been 7 years since the Reverend Laura Everett ditched 4 wheels for 2, a decision she says was good for both her body and her soul. She details her journey in her new book, Holy Spokes, The Search for Urban Spirituality on 2 Wheels. Reverend Laura Everett, who's an ordained United Church of Christ pastor and the executive director of the Mass Council of Churches, joins me now. Laura, how's it going?
Good.
Should we disclose that I know you a little bit because I've interviewed you over the years and we both went to Harvard Divinity School? Let's put that on the table at the outset.
Yeah, but we haven't ridden a bike together yet.
We have never ridden a bike together, and I don't even know if we will. Let me start by getting you to recount how you became a cyclist, because it's a pretty great story.
Yeah. Well, I was fresh out of Divinity School, first job, and not making a ton of money. And my car died on 93 South.
What kind of car was this, by the way?
It was a 96 Jetta.
Nice.
It was red, manual. And I happened to be in a Bible study about economics, how to live more simply and give more generously at the time. And I showed up that next day to my Bible study, and I said, my car's died, and they said, you can't afford a new car. But we think you can ride a bicycle, and we're willing to help. It happened that there were a bunch of women in that Bible study who also used bicycles as their primary form of transit.
So did they actually pool their resources to help you buy a new bike, or did they give you the lay of the land?
Yeah, those women did a number of things. They were really church lady bike Sherpas, right? They helped me purchase a frame and do some repairs, and then taught me how to ride, right? Because I had grown up riding a bicycle in suburban New Jersey, but riding in a city is a pretty different experience.
So when they got you riding, where were you living? What neighborhood? Where were you riding to and from on a regular basis?
I was living in Jamaica Plain, near the Forest Hills T-Stop, where I am now, so same neighborhood for about the past 7 or 8 years. And then I was commuting in to Beacon Hill. And that route is primarily along the Southwest Corridor. It's a wonderful protected path that also has deep Boston history, right? That path comes because citizens fought a proposal to bisect the city with a highway.
Yeah, City Councilor Chuck Turner and others, right?
Right.
Mel King also. When did you realize that taking this ride on a regular basis was not just getting you from point A to point B, but was having some sort of spiritual effect as well as relocating you?
Yeah. I think it took about 2 years. What we do daily shapes us, whether it's spending time in a car or spending time on a bike or praying 5 times a day or receiving communion daily. What we do daily shapes us. And slowly, after 2 years on a bicycle, I was really comfortable with it and stopped being quite so anxious and could really enjoy my ride.
But it wasn't just enjoying your ride, right? I mean, you write in the book that you started to experience the world around you that you were passing through every day in a much more raw and intimate way. I think that's a fair way to paraphrase. What did you see or feel or sense that you weren't before?
I think this is part of the gift of being on a bicycle, is that you interact with your environment around you. In a car or on the Orange Line, I was going underneath neighborhoods or encased in a giant metal container, and I wasn't interacting with my neighbors. That whole love thy neighbor thing, it turns out it's a lot easier to do when you actually see your neighbors. And so on the bike path, those signs of spring to me weren't just the blooming of flowers, but I knew when the Department of Corrections had folks out cleaning the streets.
And were you actually, just as an aside, communicating with people who you would see in the course of your travels? I mean,
you know, you start to say hello to the regulars.
Yeah.
You notice the kids who are going to school every morning, or especially the folks who live outside.
Right. So you're more attuned to suffering that is around you than you might have been otherwise. You were at one point hit while riding your bike. As I think most people who pay attention to local politics know, the question of bike safety and how bicyclists should coexist with cars and with pedestrians has been a a hot-button issue lately, in part because Boston Mayor Marty Walsh was on our midday radio show, Boston Public Radio, and made a comment to the effect of, people who are not in cars need to pay attention and take out their headphones because cars are going to hit you. I'm wondering why you think it is so difficult for people in cars to accept their coexistence with people who are cycling and walking. What is it about that equation that makes some people so angry?
I think a lot goes into that. Look, I'm not a bicycle purist. I do drive a car, and I think most cyclists do. But by bicycle and by foot, you gain a sense of the real vulnerability that happens on the road. I'm not encased in metal. I'm not protected. And so I have a very embodied sense of my own vulnerability. I believe in proportional responsibility, that those who have more power and can do more damage have more responsibility to care for vulnerable people.
That's why I've always had a bit of a hard time seeing cars and bikes and walkers as equals, because only one of them has the multi-ton vehicle that can inflict massive damage. But do you think it's... So you say you get an extra sense of personal vulnerability when you're out there riding. What is it about, and I don't want to belabor the negative too much, but what is it about cyclists that makes some car drivers so grumpy? I don't mean to minimize it, because that grumpiness can be lethal. What does it?
For whatever reason, our roads have become competitive. People are gunning it through the yellow, right?
Yeah, and the red.
And the red, right? And there are major consequences to that. The U.S. Census American Communities Survey found since 2000 there's been a 61% growth in bicycle commuting. We've got these roads of finite space where more and more cyclists are there, but we haven't built up the infrastructure to protect people adequately.
All right. Laura Everett, we got to leave it there. I'll talk to you when we're not taping a show some other time and continue this conversation. Thank you for coming in to talk about your new book, Holy Spokes.
Happy to do it.
All right. The book again, Holy Spokes, The Search for Urban Spirituality on Two Wheels.